So we got a really special guest here, former representative here, David Jolly. We're excited he's here with us today. We have the folks who really developed the relationship and the friendship with David Jolly. Ken and Linda Schatz here with us in the front. Ken Schatz is going to introduce David Jolly. So come on up here, Ken, do that.
All right, so we're going to hear from David Jolly, former representative from 2014 to 2017, served in the U.S. House of Representatives. He had everything you could do in the House. He's been an intern, he's been a representative, and everything in between. So, and he's very well known. You see him on television. He has opinions. People listen to him. And he's also been on our conference calls, our monthly conference call once to talk to us. And so he's famous. And David is totally aligned with what we're doing. Totally aligned. So that's the what of David Jolly. I'd like to talk about the who of David Jolly. About 4 years ago, Sam Daly Harris, our founder, was promoting his 20th anniversary edition of Reclaiming Our Democracy. So we used everything Sam taught us and that Ken taught us, and we set up for Sam to speak at the College of Public Health at the University of South Florida. We also arranged for him to get complete coverage in our newspaper. We also arranged to make sure that the coverage included a lot about results and included the fact that we had a chapter in Tampa, and also arranged to have it slip in an email address. I think it's called Lobbying the World. So we did that. About 3 days later, we got an email from the office of Representative David Jolly. It came from the local head of the office. It said, Representative Jolly would like to know if he could attend your next meeting. Looking at who he is. So I called the office and said, there's no need for David to come to our meeting. We'd be glad to come to the office and meet him. And Linda and I and a couple of other representatives, volunteers with results, went over to the office. We said hello. We all sat down. I looked to him and I said, why did you want to meet with us? And he said, I think you know some things that I don't know, that if I did know, I'd be a better representative in Congress. We wanted to kiss his feet, but we thought it would be inappropriate on the first meeting. So that's who David is. His humility marks David's service to ending poverty, to serving in the House. He's a remarkably wonderful person, and he's out to save a few lives just as we are. So please, let's welcome David.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Ken and Linda. Ken should be the politician in the room, not me. If you have worked with Ken and Linda, and I imagine many of you have, there are a few greater advocates for results and for the causes you're working on than Ken and Linda. So I know y'all have been here for a while, but I just flew in for this. And I'm not asking for credit. I'm telling you how important the work it is that you're doing. I got on a plane in Tampa this morning to come here to spend a few hours with you and hopefully get home and have dinner with my wife this evening. And I did it I did it because I believe you all are involved in an incredible movement. And I got to ask you one question. Are you excited about what the next 48 hours holds for results in Capitol Hill? That's it. That's why you're here. You are here not just to talk to legislators, but to fundamentally change the world. And I want to share something with you. When Ken and Linda and I had the first opportunity to meet, I didn't know what results did. But because of the voice of members of results, you educated a member of Congress to try to set out with you to change the world. And that's exactly what you're doing on Capitol Hill as you go there tomorrow. And I also want to say this, I'm going to put all this up front because sometimes you get into talks and you don't remember the last 15 minutes, only the first couple of minutes. I'm going to tell you something very important for what you're about to do. Your conversations with legislators about ending global poverty, about investing in programs that address global access to health care, that address global access to education, the conversations you have in the next 48 hours may be the only conversations that members of Congress have on these issues all year. And I want you to consider that, truly. That is the work that you're doing. And I know we are going to talk in a little bit about faith in government, about trust in government, about the challenges, about how effective a message you can deliver. But I want to set as a baseline for you, you're it. You're the front line. I can tell you that from having spent 20 years on Capitol Hill. There is no more effective advocacy organization to address global poverty, access to health care, than results. That's it. The message you're going to deliver is the only message they're going to hear. Do not let up, do not give up, and do not let them off the hook. Do not let them off the hook. You're going to run into receptive audiences, you're going to run into confused audiences, and you're going to run into audiences that would just assume to show you the door and walk out. Do not give up. So many of you are going to actually be meeting with the very representatives that the Constitution envisions to give voice to your concern, not theirs. This is a republic, folks. The members you're going to be meeting with are there to give voice to your interests and to your priorities. And in this case, for results, those priorities include combating global poverty and providing access to health care and education in communities around the world that are today underserved, but because of the work you're doing, one day will be served. Now, I also want to share something with you that is a little unusual for me. Ken and Linda are maybe looped into this, and some of you who are on the conference call this spring might be looped into this as well. You go through a lot of experiences when you get elected to Congress. I thought I knew a lot about Congress. As Ken said, I had served as an intern, as a legislative staffer, as a press person, as a chief of staff, a district person. I was even one of those people that the president probably considers the swamp. I was a lobbyist at one point. Folks, you all are lobbyists as well. Some of the proudest work I did was actually outside of government, not inside of government. But a funny thing happens. First of all, you get elected, and this is something, if I could change one thing, sorry for the commentary on this. You get elected by one vote more than the person you're running against, and they give you a title, the Honorable. You've seen a lot of elections. There's not a lot of honor in campaigns. And I bet you all would have opinions about how much honor we see in government today. Some people accept the title, others wrestle with it, as I did. The other chapter happens as you leave. As you leave, all of a sudden, you have kind of become, whether you're there, in my case, for 3 years or for 30 or for 3 months, there's an expectation that you are the congressman or the congresswoman or the representative. And we ask for the job, but what comes with the job is a lot of requests. Losing ain't easy, folks. I was in a district that got redrawn, but I still thought we could do it. At the end of the day, we couldn't, and we lost. I believe in everything we did. I support my successor, but losing is not easy. Remarkably, when your family lives through this, sometimes your constituents forget. So I was one of those rowdy Republicans who kind of failed to go along with everything I was told I was supposed to do as a Republican. It came with some consequences. It came with a lot of press coverage. Sometimes you wish for more or less of either one of those. But probably one of the more defining moments is I had decided early on, maybe in 2015, that I was not going to support the Republican nominee for president. And whatever your politics are, and I'm not here to validate either side of the aisle or not, I was not going to support the nominee of my side of the aisle. And I made that public on the House floor. And my future in the Republican Party was pretty much over at that point. So it was remarkable when I lose how many constituents came to me in December and January saying, "Hey, Congressman Jolly, can you get us tickets to the inauguration of President Donald Trump?" They still thought I was the congressman, which I was not, and they thought somehow I had an in with the incoming president, which I was not. So folks, I had a t-shirt made that I've never worn in public. But it says #CallYourCongressman. It was a little personal message for my wife and I, but unbeknownst to us, what we were going to encounter as a country in the days following was one in which messages of advocacy are critical. Critical. Every single day you wake up in this environment, you should be thinking about calling your congressman. Not just for the issues of the day, but for the issues that are most passionate for you. Who understands best the most effective policy to combat global poverty and access to education and health care? Your member of Congress or you? And I know the answer to that. It's you. It's results. You have a subject matter expertise that your member of Congress does not have. I promise you that. It's why my version of the story with Ken and Linda was that I saw a letter to the editor from Ken and Linda. And somewhere in there, it alluded to the fact we hope that incoming Congressman David Jolly will understand and appreciate the work we're doing. And as I mentioned, I didn't. I'm the son of a Southern Baptist preacher born in Florida who had never been north of Tennessee by the time I graduated from college. I was not world traveled. My father was on the mission field, and I knew the stories of how he tried to serve the least among us, but I never had myself. And what I saw in the letter to the editor from Ken and Linda and what I have seen in working with results since is that you're touching lives, and many of those lives are what we often say are the least among us around the globe. Not because of their own talents, not because of their own fortunes, not because of their own fortitude, but simply because of the plot of land in which they're born. You're changing lives. You're changing lives for people who often don't have the resources to change their own lives. Never lose sight of that. I will share with you as you go to the Hill, and I know many of you are veterans, and so these are just insights to be insights. Take with it what you will. But members of Congress have hundreds of meetings. You know that. You've done it. You've seen it. Those staffers, they have hundreds of meetings. So if you were to take away just a few things, 4 or 5 things, to at least consider when you're thinking about the message you want to deliver tomorrow. First is to know the policy. Know the policy behind what you're advocating for. So the education, the inflection point for most members of Congress to drive them to action requires a level of education so they know what decision they're being asked to make. When I was in Congress, the issue was that President Obama's administration had set budget levels at a certain amount and had made commitments to multilateral organizations that the United States would do X amount. And the concern at the time was that the Republican Congress was not being a willing partner with the Obama administration's commitments. The concern today is that this administration is walking away from all of that in the past 3 to 4 years. Know the policy, know the context, draw that contrast. If you think of every decision you make in life, and the most obvious ones would be on a ballot, you make decisions between choices based on a contrast. What's the contrast? Are we doing better when it comes to addressing global poverty, access to health care, and access to education? Or are we doing worse? And either answer in an agnostic environment is okay. If we're doing better, then we're asking to keep the momentum. If we're doing worse, we're asking to return to the days in which we are investing more. Know where we are in today's policy environment. Secondly, know procedure. This really is an area where it should not be incumbent upon advocates to know the arcane procedure of congressional politics. But if you're not at least familiar with it, the opportunity to lose a call to action in that meeting becomes increasingly high. And what I mean by that is, are we asking for language in an appropriations bill? Are we asking for a budget number to change? Are we asking for a co-signer to a letter? Are we asking for a co-sponsor to a bill? Each one of those are different. And each one of those, some of them have timelines. You know, if it's just a bill, it's a 2-year timeline. If it's an appropriations measure, you can be bouncing up or bumping up against a 30-day or 60-day time limit. Have a familiarity with where we are procedurally so that when you make the ask to a staffer or a member who is absorbing dozens of asks every day, there's a clarity to it that separates your ask from the others they hear during the day. It will be very hard to be a master of congressional procedure. You certainly have no reason to achieve it. Procedure is a matter we should entrust to our elected officials, but be familiar with it and just understand the context in which you're asking. Thirdly, and this is an area, frankly, where I got invited into the results conversation, which is know the politics. It is easy with a broad brush to paint both sides of the aisle as having one direction or another. But for those of you who have worked with and gotten to know your members of Congress, you will learn some of the interest they have. One of my regrets in leaving office is I didn't get to visit Africa with results. That is something I would have enjoyed doing so that I could have been a more effective legislator in Congress. Not because of the travel. I mean, travel's hard. You all know that. You've committed your time. But because of the education and awareness that comes with working on the issues that you're working on. For others, the politics may be adverse to results. The number of times I am confident you have met with a Republican member of Congress who tells you about the debt and the deficit as a reason to not support Gavi or one of the programs you're working on, you don't have enough hands to count those number of times. And I can stand here and tell you today it's an absolute garbage excuse from Republicans. But it is their excuse. And be aware of that. So one of the issues, I know one of the strategies that results deployed was how do we create additional investment in these programs that simply maintains the growth of spending or maintains current spending. Don't cut these priorities. There are other priorities we could look at for savings. Know the politics. The fourth one is be personal. I can't underestimate for you as a member of Congress knowing that I had a personal relationship with Linda and Ken. One that did not exist before Congress. These weren't donors that I had cultivated. Ken and Linda weren't out waving signs. You may have been waving signs for my opponent. I never asked. I don't know. And that's the important thing. Keep it personal. Make it personal. And part of that is recognizing that you can be an ally and a partner with your elected official, regardless of their partisan stripes, regardless of their priorities. There are areas in which you can empower them. You can make them a better member of Congress. The one thing that drives every single candidate and elected official, the one thing is enlightened self-interest. If you're that quiet partner that allows an elected official to be smarter and to be able to see an electoral reward for doing the right thing, they're going to do it. That sometimes creates some hard tension with where we each are, right? How do you work with somebody who might be adverse to your politics? How do you identify ways to move forward with them? It's critical. And one of the ways to break through that is to make it personal. I didn't pick up a newspaper sitting in St. Petersburg, Florida, and read the New York Times, and it was an editorial from a resident of Connecticut. It was a couple in my backyard that I knew I had a responsibility to try to give voice to. Don't be afraid to make it personal. And yes, that includes subtle or not so subtle indications of accountability. It doesn't mean you have to hit them with a hammer if they're not doing your thing. Just constantly follow up with them and let them know you're going to be following up. Let them know your results organization back home is going to be interested in whether or not they sign on, that you're going to be speaking about it at the next meeting. Get to know the staff so that they know you. The last thing I'll tell you, and this is where results is unique among any advocacy organization in the country. Be powerful. Be powerful. And it goes to what we spoke about at the very beginning. No other organization that I know of, that I experienced in 20 years working on the Hill, charges the Hill to say, we don't want anything for us. We want your help to change lives. Paint the picture for them. Paint the picture how 5 cents per individual can increase the life expectancy or save infants around the globe. Paint the picture about what $1 means to the ability of women and children to educate themselves or to find access to education, to separate from communities where they otherwise would have no opportunity, no rights to themselves, no future. What a small investment can do to change lives around the globe. What economic opportunity means. How much cheaper the cost of peace is compared to the cost of war. Be powerful in your advocacy. We are in an era unlike, folks, I'm 45 years old. I've never seen anything like this. What we all would likely agree is that we have felt a palpable loss of trust in government. That actually has been measured. There's an international public affairs firm, I believe they're headquartered here or in New York, by the name of Edelman. And I don't work for them, so I'm encouraging you to check them out, not because I have any interest other than their studies are fascinating. And look for I believe they call it the trust barometer. Edelman for the past 20 years has measured trust in government around the globe, trust in press around the globe, trust in each other around the globe. Trust in government in the United States last year, by a year-over-year measurement, fell by about 17 points. Among informed voters, those who come to Washington to advocate, it fell by 20 to 30 points. It is the highest drop in trust in government that we have ever seen outside moments of national security or economic collapse. 9/11 was the last time we saw a precipitous drop. Otherwise, trust has pretty much moved along, even ticked up. Until the last 24 months, we have seen a collapse of trust in government. And that's not a partisan take, because I would tell you, you could be speaking to a group on the left or the right or the middle, and everybody's feeling that trust in government. The way to restore the trust doesn't sit with the voters. It sits with the elected officials you're speaking to. You show me elected representatives who are willing to invest in changing lives of infants, women, children, people in poverty, people without health care, people without education. You show me a government willing to address those global concerns, and I'll show you a government that creates trust for the next 20 years. That is what you're offering them. There is an opportunity for our government today to begin to restore trust. Not to do with anything else we're seeing with investigations or with the President or the Congress or the Supreme Court, but simply by doing the right thing. We don't trust government because we don't see our government actors doing the right thing. This is an opportunity to do the right thing. What we do for the least among us reflects who we are as a nation, reflects our character, reflects our heart. But at the end of the day, we are a nation of individuals. It is what is unique about this nation that was founded over 200 years ago. We are not a nation that believes a crown distributes freedom and thought to its people. The one thing that has survived, despite all of our challenges that we have faced, is that we continue to be a nation where freedom and liberty is reflected in the human heart. That's all you're asking for when you go to the Hill. That's all you're asking for. There is no more powerful message that your elected official is going to hear this week, this month, or this year than the one they're going to hear from you tomorrow. Go get them. God bless you.